The great hall of the Interstellar Congress fell into an unnatural silence. 24 species representing the galaxy's oldest civilizations sat frozen as Admiral Zextral's secondary breathing bladders inflated and deflated rapidly, the six-limbed veteran's equivalent of hyperventilation. "Speak plainly, Admiral," urged High Chancellor Ulu, her bioluminescent patterns flashing concern. "What has our deep space monitoring network detected?" Zextral's exoskeleton clicked nervously. "The impossible, Chancellor. A species from an unregistered system has achieved faster than light travel. They call themselves humans." The word meant nothing to the assembled delegates, yet the Admiral's demeanor, the trembling of limbs that had remained steady during the Kronos Pulsar crisis, sent ripples of unease through the chamber. "Another fledgling civilization seeking recognition?" asked the Kulorian elder, his voice ancient as eroding mountains. "We welcome dozens each cycle. This is different." The Admiral's manipulator appendage interfaced with the hall's neural network. "Observe." The chamber darkened as a holographic representation of a small blue-green world materialized in the center. Statistics and evolutionary markers scrolled alongside it. Sol 3, designated Earth by its inhabitants. Unremarkable terrestrial world, nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere. The dominant species evolved from pursuit predators approximately 300,000 years ago. The neural projection shifted, showing primitive humans fashioning stone tools, discovering fire, developing agriculture. Nothing the Congress hadn't seen thousands of times before. "Accelerated advancement began merely 10,000 years ago," continued Zextral. And then, the images blurred as the timeline compression increased. Civilizations rose and fell at dizzying speed. Humans built across their entire world, fought countless wars, split the atom, and within a single lifetime, left their atmosphere. Gasps echoed through the hall as the delegates witnessed something unprecedented. A series of near-extinction events. Nuclear exchanges, climate collapse, resource depletion, asteroid impacts, any one of which should have ended their civilization. "By all predictive models," said Zextral, "they should have perished at least 7 times." The Illyri representative, her crystalline form vibrating with distress, whispered, "How did they survive?" "They adapted. Where our civilizations required millennia to recover from such setbacks, they'd rebuilt in decades. They turned their wounds into strengths." The projection showed humans transforming radiation medicine into longevity treatments, climate engineering into terraforming technology, asteroid defense into deep space propulsion. 300 standard years ago, they were burning hydrocarbons for energy. Zextrol continued, voice hollow with disbelief. "Yesterday, our border sensor array detected this. A sleek vessel appeared, elegant yet somehow predatory in its design." Admiral Zextrol zoomed the image to reveal its designation, UNC Audacity. Their first interstellar vessel uses drive principles our scientists theorized but deemed too unstable for practical application. They've somehow solved the containment problem. The eternal chair being, whose species had witnessed the birth of stars, leaned forward. For a being who measured time in millennia, sudden movement was unprecedented. "Show us their communication," they whispered. A human face appeared, female, dark-skinned, with eyes that seemed to look through the projection into each delegate's core being. Her voice translated through the neural network. "Greetings from humanity. We come seeking friendship and knowledge. We bring our hopes, our dreams, and our determination to join the galactic community." The message was diplomatic, even humble, yet something in her expression, an intensity, a hunger, sent shivers through the assembly. The transmission ended, and the eternal cherubim spoke a phrase that would soon echo through every world in Congress space. "They don't know how to give up. Stars help us all." Chancellor Ulu's secondary heart began pulsing erratically. How long until they reach Congress space? Admiral Zextrol's upper limbs clasped in the gesture of inevitability. "They're already here. Their vessel awaits our response at Outpost Sigma." In the stunned silence that followed, the Quilorian elder made a sound no delegate had ever heard from the ancient species, something between a laugh and a sob. "The universe," the elder said, "has a curious sense of humor. We who have guided 1,000 species may have finally met our match." The ornate preparation chamber behind the Congress Hall had never witnessed such chaos. Ambassador Clith of the crystalline Vecti vibrated at a frequency that sent warning signals through the chamber sensors. "Reduce your resonance, Ambassador," urged the medical officer. "Your crystalline structure." Too late. Clith shattered into 1,000 glittering fragments, a stress response from their species, leaving behind only their consciousness core, which pulsed angrily. "I will not reform to greet these humans," came Clith's telepathic voice. "Did you witness their history? Constant warfare. They fight even themselves." Across the chamber, representatives from 24 species broke into factions. The militant Krovac delegation, insectoid warriors with natural armor, clicked their mandibles in agitated debate. "Preemptive containment is the only logical response," General Krisk insisted. "We observed their tactics. They weaponize everything. Even their failures become advantages." The 3 Illyri delegates huddled in a corner, their normally luminous skin dull with exhaustion. All wore specially designed isolation helmets after their advanced scout had suffered psychic shock from merely orbiting Earth. "Their minds never stop," whispered First Empath Shirla, her tendrils wrapped protectively around herself. "Constant noise, hope, fear, lust, rage, joy, sorrow, all simultaneously." When the scout touched their collective unconscious, she experienced every emotion possible in seconds. She requires sedation to sleep. Ambassador Thrix, youngest of the Nexari, a mammalian species known for adaptability, slipped away from the chaos. Her access to the Congress's secure archives was limited by her junior status, but she'd discovered an unguarded terminal near the sanitation ducts. Her 6-fingered hands danced across the interface as she bypassed security protocols using techniques she'd learned from a disgraced mentor. The archives opened before her, revealing forbidden historical records. "Query: previous encounters with adapter species," she whispered. The results chilled her core temperature. Humanity wasn't the first rapidly evolving species the galaxy had seen, merely the first to reach interstellar capability without self-destruction. The others had all followed the same trajectory: exponential advancement followed by civilization, collapse through warfare or resource depletion. But humans had survived their self-destructive phase. The implications were staggering. Frix's research was interrupted when her neural implant vibrated with an encrypted message from her mentor, Elder Counselor Vex. The encryption used a personal cipher they'd developed during Frix's apprenticeship. "Military committee proposing strike against human vessel. Emergency session called." Frix's heart stuttered. A preemptive attack. Madness. She downloaded the historical files to her neural cache and raced through maintenance corridors toward the Congress Hall. She arrived breathless as General Krisk demonstrated a tactical simulation. A holographic version of the human vessel Audacity disintegrated under concentrated fire from Congress defensive arrays. "The operation would be regrettable but necessary," the general concluded. "We eliminate 27 humans now, or risk our entire civilization later. You propose murdering diplomatic envoys." Frix's voice rang out. Heads turned, many registering shock at her unauthorized presence. "This is a closed session, Junior Ambassador," Chancellor Olu reprimanded. "Forgive me, Chancellor, but I've discovered critical context." Frix stepped forward, her fur bristling with nervous energy. "Humanity isn't the first adapter species we've encountered." She transferred the archival records to the central display. Images of extinct civilizations appeared, all remarkably similar to humanity in their chaotic advancement patterns. The Vecti once competed with another crystalline species, the Shardak. The Congress voted to contain them during their early stellar age. Their response: Frix enhanced the image of a shattered crystal planet. They converted their homeworld into an explosive device rather than submit. Half the Vecti system remains uninhabitable. Murmurs rippled through the assembly as Fricks continued. If we strike first, we confirm their worst fears about advanced civilizations. If these humans truly are what we fear, we won't get a second chance. The chamber fell silent until the eternal chair being stirred. The junior ambassador speaks wisdom beyond her cycles. They said, "We will not attack. Instead, we must prepare not only our defenses, but our understanding. We have forgotten how to welcome the dangerous." The entire Congress observation deck watched as the human vessel Audacity approached Diplomacy Station. The ship was smaller than expected, sleek, with clean lines that somehow suggested both efficiency and restrained power. "Curious design," noted Chief Engineer Volmar, his 8 eyes tracking the vessel's trajectory. No external weapons arrays visible, yet our scanners detect energy signatures consistent with defensive capabilities. "It's the approach vector that concerns me," muttered Admiral Zextral. "Such precision is unnecessary," finished Volmar, "and faintly threatening." The station's quantum intelligence agreed, its disembodied voice emanating from the acoustic field. The human pilot is executing a docking procedure with 99.7% efficiency. This exceeds typical parameters by 23.4% and suggests either superior navigation systems or exceptional organic control. Ambassador Thrix felt her fur bristle with anticipation as the Audacity completed its final maneuver, connecting to the station with a soft metallic kiss that barely registered on the sensors. The airlock cycled. Tension electrified the atmosphere as the door rised open. The humans appeared, 5 of them, led by a female with copper-brown skin and close-cropped silver hair. Her face bore lines that suggested both age and frequent expressions of emotion. Most striking were her hands, strong but scarred, with evidence of healed breaks and burns. "Ambassador Elena Vasquez of Earth," she announced, her voice steady and warm as she offered the universal greeting gesture, arms extended, palms open. "We come seeking friendship and knowledge." Physically, the human seemed unremarkable. Bipedal, symmetrical, with no natural weapons, average musculature, and limited sensory apparatus. Yet they carried themselves with an easy confidence that made several Congress representatives shift uncomfortably. The formal introduction ceremony proceeded according to ancient protocol. Ambassador Vasquez demonstrated a disconcerting ability to adapt to each species' cultural norms without apparent effort, performing the complex Krovac greeting ritual flawlessly, respecting the precise distance required by the olfactory-sensitive Morai, and somehow intuiting that the Kulorian elder preferred minimal eye contact. "How do they know?" whispered a Vecti representative. "We provided no cultural briefing. They're watching and learning in real time," replied Thrix. "Extraordinary pattern recognition." Disaster nearly struck during the atmospheric accommodation phase. The methane-breathing Vorlon delegate, Ambassador Gtar, suddenly clutched at his environment suit's respirator, emitting a high-pitched distress signal. Before Congress safety protocols could activate, Ambassador Vasquez was already moving. She diagnosed the problem at a glance, microfracture in the filtration component, and improvised a temporary seal using her ceremonial sash, a bonding agent from her pocket, and what appeared to be a small tool disguised as jewelry. "Pressure stable," she announced calmly, helping the Vorlon representative regulate his breathing. "Your medical team should replace the primary filter, but this will hold for approximately 6 hours. The Congress medical director arrived moments later, visibly confused that his emergency team had been rendered unnecessary. Later, during the reception, Fricks found herself alone with Vasquez near the observation window overlooking the galactic core. "Your quick action saved Ambassador Gtar considerable distress," Fricks acknowledged. "Where did you learn emergency exosuit repair?" Vasquez smiled, the expression creating a map of lines around her eyes. "Necessity, mostly. I've survived 3 shipwrecks and a civil war before my 30th birthday. Bad luck follows me." The universal translator rendered this concept in a way that sent a chill through Thrix's neural pathways. "I have faced extinction multiple times and considered it merely inconvenient. Your species seems remarkably adaptable," Thrix observed carefully. "We've had to be." Vasquez gazed at the stars, something ancient and tired briefly crossing her features. "Earth isn't gentle. Neither were we, to each other. But we learned." Thrix noticed something she'd missed before. Beneath Vasquez's formal attire, barely visible at her collar, was a neural interface scar more advanced than Congress military grade. "Ambassador," Thrix asked, unable to contain her curiosity, "your diplomatic credentials list you as a career negotiator, but you move like someone with tactical training." Vasquez's eyes, warm brown with flecks of gold, met Thrix's. "In humanity's history, Ambassador Thrix, the best negotiators often understand exactly what happens when diplomacy fails. It tends to make us highly motivated toward peaceful solutions." The Grand Cultural Exchange, a tradition dating back to the Congress's founding, transformed the station's central atrium into a kaleidoscope of diverse life. 24 species shared art, music, cuisine, and philosophy beneath the transparent dome, showcasing the galactic core. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Keller, the Audacity's science officer, stood slightly apart from the festivities, slim and unassuming with thoughtful eyes behind antique-style glasses, a curious affectation that puzzled many delegates. She recorded observations in an actual physical notebook, another anachronism that many species found charming. "Primitive data storage?" asked an Illyri child who had approached without Keller noticing. Keller smiled, kneeling to the child's level. "Sometimes old technology has unexpected advantages. Would you like to see?" The Illyri child's tendrils glowed with curiosity as Keller showed her how to form letters with the pen, explaining how poets on Earth still preferred physical writing for its connection between mind and body. "I've composed a poem about your species," Keller said softly. "Would you like to hear it?" From across the room, Ambassador Thrix watched the human scientist reciting poetry to an enraptured Illyri child, surprised by this gentle intersection of species, typically incompatible due to the Illyri's sensitive telepathy. The moment shattered when the atrium's lights flickered. 6 figures in environmental suits materialized throughout the gathering, their transport signatures bypassing the station's security protocols. Before anyone could react, they activated devices that emitted a high-frequency pulse. "Evolutionary disruptors," screamed a Congress security officer before convulsing, his exoskeleton beginning to soften and deform. Chaos erupted. Congress security forces collapsed as the weapons triggered genetic regression, an abomination banned for millennia. Species began reverting to primitive forms, some losing sentience entirely. "Purity through return," announced the leader of the attackers, his voice modulated through his helm. "The CONGRESSAAHs BBEN CORUP PT by CAAOS VRINGRS." The human delegation, mysteriously unaffected by the disruptors, reacted with startling coordination. Ambassador Vasquez and her young translator Maya immediately commandeered the communication array, broadcasting emergency protocols while the security detail established evacuation routes without a word exchanged between them. Thrix found herself cornered alongside the Illyri child, a masked attacker advancing with a pulsing energy weapon. "Lesser beings must be cleansed," the attacker intoned, raising his weapon. "The humans bring disorder to perfect order." A blur of motion interposed itself between them, Lieutenant Commander Keller moving with speed incongruous with her bookish demeanor. The energy blast meant for Thrix, and the child struck Keller directly in the chest. Keller's body absorbed the lethal energy, her form momentarily illuminated from within. As she collapsed, her right hand pressed something at her temple, while her left squeezed the Illyri child's small hand. "Run," she whispered, blood trickling from her lips, her eyes unfocused as she added, Targeting solution complete. Seconds later, precision stun blasts struck each attacker simultaneously from concealed points throughout the atrium. They collapsed in perfect synchronization. In the aftermath, Congress medical teams worked frantically to stabilize the affected. Director Nalvin, treating the fallen attackers, made a disturbing discovery. "They're purity convergence extremists," he announced, examining their insignia. "Religious fanatics who believe technological and cultural exchange violates cosmic balance." Ambassador Vasquez, bandaging a wound on her arm, looked grim. Extremists exist everywhere, it seems. Later, in the medical bay, Director Nalvin requested Thrix's presence. On an examination table lay Lieutenant Commander Keller's body, partially dissected for autopsy. "I thought you should see this," he said, his voice troubled. "The human officer's nervous system." Thrix stared at the exposed neural pathways, recognizing military-grade enhancements disguised as standard diplomatic security augments, combat reflexes, tactical processors, targeting systems, all beautifully integrated with her natural biology. They sent warriors disguised as diplomats, Nalvin concluded. Thrix remembered Keller kneeling before an alien child, sharing poetry from a paper notebook. How her final act had been to save 2 lives at the cost of her own. "No," Thrix corrected softly. "They are both, simultaneously. That's what makes them so terrifying." Professor Talmack, the Congress's foremost xenotechnologist, adjusted his sensory apparatus as he led the human engineers through the station's central power facility. 7 centuries of flawless operation had made this tour a mere formality, a diplomatic courtesy extended to all new species. "The quantum resonance matrix converts vacuum energy into usable power," he explained, gesturing toward the pulsing blue core with a tendril. "The efficiency rating has remained stable at 89.3% since implementation." Engineering specialist Raj Patel nodded politely, but Talmack didn't miss the slight narrowing of his eyes, an expression he'd learned indicated human concentration rather than skepticism. "Perfect stability for 700 years, marveled Patel. "That's quite an achievement." Talmack's chromatophores flushed with pride. Indeed, the system was designed to achieve perfect equilibrium, the ideal state of technology. 4 hours later, Talmack was summoned urgently to Conference Room 12B. He arrived to find the walls covered with diagrams, simulations, and equations. Patel and 2 other human engineers barely acknowledged his entrance, absorbed in rapid-fire discussion using terminology that occasionally outpaced the translation matrix. "Ah, Professor," Patel finally noticed him. "I hope you don't mind. We had some thoughts about your power system." "Thoughts?" Talmack repeated, processing the room's contents. "You've redesigned our entire infrastructure." "Just modifications," Patel clarified, bringing up a holographic model. "See, your resonance matrix has 17 critical inefficiencies that compound across the distribution network." Talmack's tendril stiffened. "That's impossible. Our system has functioned flawlessly for centuries." Patel looked genuinely confused. "Functioning isn't the same as optimal. With these adjustments, efficiency would increase to 97.8%, and you could extend power to the outer habitation rings that currently rely on secondary systems." "The outer rings were designed with secondary systems," Talmack said defensively. "The dual layer approach ensures redundancy." "But it's unnecessary complexity," countered Patel. "By integrating the systems and implementing these feedback loops, you'd increase stability while reducing maintenance requirements by 64%. Why would we change a system that works perfectly well?" Talmack demanded. Patel blinked, then exchanged glances with his colleagues. "Because it could work better." The conversation was interrupted by a priority notification. In the medical research sector, a situation was developing. Talmack arrived at the biological archives to find 3 human medical researchers surrounded by Congress scientists. Dr. Lakshmi Chen, the Audacity's medical officer, was presenting findings on a neural display. We were granted access to review Congress biological archives, she explained to the bewildered director. We noticed patterns in several genetic conditions affecting elder species that suggested potential treatments. These conditions have been studied for millennia, objected Director Nulvin. They're considered untreatable aspects of evolutionary development. Perhaps with your approach, Dr. Chen acknowledged diplomatically. But we applied techniques developed from human genetic diversity studies. We've synthesized 3 treatments ready for testing. You developed treatments for incurable conditions as a side project. Nalvin's respiratory sacs expanded in disbelief. We worked through our sleep cycles, Dr. Chen admitted. It was an interesting puzzle. Later, an emergency session of the Inner Council convened to address these developments. The Eternal Chair being presided, their ancient eyes studying reports from across the station. In 2 standard weeks, began Chancellor Ulu, the humans have submitted 124 suggestions for technological improvements, 39 medical treatments, and 17 modifications to our legal codices to address what they call logical inconsistencies. They can't help themselves, observed the Kulorian elder. They see any system and immediately imagine how to change it. Professor Talmack, invited to testify, activated the central display. This pattern extends beyond their intellectual contributions, observed their integration into station life. The display showed humans adapting to different environmental sections without typical adjustment periods. They thrived in gravity variations, endured temperature extremes, and remained productive during station night cycles when most species required rest. We designed our technologies to achieve equilibrium, explained the Kulorian elder to the troubled council. They build theirs to transcend limitations. They don't seek balance. They hunger for the next horizon. Is this a threat assessment? Asked General Krisk. No, replied Thrix, who had remained silent until now. It's a revelation. We've forgotten what it means to evolve. The warning came without preamble, a burst of quantum distortion at the galaxy's outer rim that shattered sensors across 3 sectors. The Congress Ceremonial Defense Fleet, maintaining its eternal vigil, transmitted only fragments of data before communication ceased entirely. Unknown configuration, dark energy signatures, impossible geometries. Then silence. Within the Congress Emergency Command Center, a facility unused for 50 millennia, ancient protocols activated. Species representatives argued over interpretation of fragmented data, while technicians struggled with systems designed by ancestors whose thought patterns had evolved beyond current understanding. The void hegemony, whispered the Kulorian elder, eyes widened in recognition. They were believed mythological. Explain, demanded Chancellor Ulu, her bioluminescence flashing distress patterns. Entities of dark energy from dimension-adjacent spaces, the elder replied. Our ancestors recorded encounters but classified them as theoretical. We thought them allegories about entropy, not actual beings. The command center's grand holographic display flickered with calculations and predictions, each showing catastrophic outcomes with probability ratings above 98%. The predictive models show the hegemony will reach Congress Prime in 27 cycles, announced Grand Admiral Zonth. Our defensive capabilities are inadequate. From the back of the room, Lieutenant Maya Ortiz, the young human translator, stepped forward uninvited. Before security could intercept her, she accessed the holographic array, her fingers dancing across the interface with practiced precision. Excuse me, she said, her voice steady despite the breach of protocol. But I recognize this attack pattern. This is a secure military briefing, objected General Kresk. Civilian diplomatic staff have no clearance. Let her speak, interrupted Thrix, now elevated to senior ambassador following her actions during the Purity Convergence attack. Maya nodded gratefully and enhanced the tactical display. The hegemony isn't moving randomly. See these vectors. These are hunting formations similar to Earth apex predators. They're using sequential probing attacks followed by concentrated strikes at structural weaknesses. The Grand Admiral's exoskeleton clicked skeptically. You claim to recognize attack patterns of mythological beings from another dimension. Not specifically, Maya clarified. But predatory behavior has universal constants. If I'm right about the pattern recognition, I can predict their next 3 strikes. As if summoned by her words, Ambassador Vasquez entered with Captain Chen of the Audacity. Both had discarded diplomatic attire for functional uniforms bearing insignia even the translation matrix couldn't interpret. Lieutenant Ortiz, Vasquez acknowledged with a nod. Findings. Confirmed, Ambassador. Hegemony movements matched theoretical model Epsilon. Captain Chen approached the central display. With your permission, Admiral, I'd like our ship's AI to run a simulation based on Lieutenant Ortiz's analysis. The Congress leadership exchanged uneasy glances, but with their own systems failing to provide actionable intelligence, the Grand Admiral reluctantly authorized access. The resulting simulation displayed 3 systems highlighted in pulsing red. These will be the hegemony's next targets, explained Chen. Based on their current velocity and attack pattern, we have approximately 48 hours before the first strike. The command center fell silent until the eternal chair being spoke. How can you be certain? Because, Chen replied, we've been fighting similar battles since we descended from the trees. Exactly 26 hours later, the first prediction proved correct as the tachyon relay station in the Androxy system went dark. 14 hours after that, the mining colony at Helios 9 transmitted distress signals matching the second projected attack. The Congress war room, stunned into silence, turned to the humans. What followed was transformation. Ambassador Vasquez revealed specialized combat gear hidden within diplomatic quarters. Communication arrays assembled from seemingly decorative components materialized. The human delegation, previously numbering 12 individuals, demonstrated tactical expertise that suggested extensive military backgrounds. You've been fighting for peace for 50,000 years, Vasquez told the Congress leadership, her diplomat's poise replaced by a commander's authority. We've been fighting for survival since our earliest days. Let us help you fight now. As the Congress representatives processed this revelation, Maya activated a personnel file on the display, her own. Where her designation had read Junior Diplomatic Translator, it now showed Tactical Cognitive Specialist, First Class. You deceived us, accused General Kresk. No, countered Thrix, seeing the pattern at last. They simply understand that the universe doesn't permit the luxury of being only one thing. Aboard the hastily commissioned defense vessel Unity, the bridge resembled an evolutionary exhibition. Congress specialists from a dozen species integrated with human tactical officers in an uneasy collaboration. The ship itself, a Congress cruiser retrofitted with technologies the humans had suggested, represented a hybrid approach that made many Congress engineers profoundly uncomfortable. Captain Chen stood at the center, reviewing tactical projections with Grand Admiral Zoth. The hegemony force will emerge here. Chen indicated a sector near the Cygnus arm. They're using dimensional folding to bypass conventional space. If we position the fleet in standard defensive formation, they'll simply adjust their entry point. What do you propose instead? Asked the Admiral, mandibles clicking with reluctance. Chen's expression hardened. We don't defend. We hunt. The resulting strategy briefing shocked many Congress officers. The humans proposed deliberate sacrifice of peripheral outposts to draw hegemony forces into prepared kill zones, trading space for tactical advantage. They recommended deceptive emissions to create false fleet signatures. Most disturbing was their proposal to use damaged Congress vessels as bait. This is spiritually corrupt, objected Sub-Commander Vrex of the Morai. Our ships carry the essence of their builders. To use them as deception violates our most sacred protocols. With respect, Commander, countered Lieutenant Ortiz, the hegemony doesn't share your spiritual values. They're predators exploiting your predictable patterns. How would humans know what entities from another dimension think? Demanded Vrex. Because, Ortiz replied softly, We recognize ourselves in them. The admission sent a chill through the bridge. Ambassador Thrix, present as civilian observer, studied the humans with new understanding. Their capacity for violence, their ability to think like predators, stemmed from their own evolutionary path. They could predict the hegemony because similar impulses existed within their own history. 2 cycles later, the Unity emerged from hyperspace at the head of a cobbled-together battle group. The engagement that followed unfolded precisely as Chen had predicted. Hegemony forces, drawn by deliberately vulnerable Congress vessels, encountered a trap of concentrated fire from unexpected vectors. When it ended, the view screen showed hegemony ships in retreat, the first victory against the supposedly mythological enemy. In the aftermath, Captain Chen found Thrix in the ship's observatory, studying historical archives from Earth. "You're reviewing our military history," he noted. Thrix didn't look up. "Trying to understand. Your species has fought so many wars against itself. The scale of destruction is difficult to comprehend. It's not a history we're proud of," Chen acknowledged. "Yet it saved us today," Thrix observed. "Your understanding of violence, your intuitive grasp of predatory tactics, comes from your own past." Chen's expression remained carefully neutral. "Is that what troubles you? That we understand the enemy too well? How do you live with such capacity for violence?" Thrix asked directly. "How do you prevent it from consuming you?" In response, Chen accessed the archival system, bringing up different historical footage. Humans forming rescue chains during natural disasters, sacrificing for strangers, rebuilding cities from rubble. "The same adaptability that makes us dangerous makes us kind," he explained. "We contain multitudes." Before Thrix could respond, the ship's alert system activated. Lieutenant Ortiz's voice came through the comm system. "Captain to the bridge. I've identified something in the quantum fluctuations of the hegemony retreat." When they arrived, Ortiz was manipulating a 3-dimensional model of energy patterns. "The hegemony isn't just attacking," she explained, her eyes bright with discovery. "They're trying to get home. These energy signatures indicate a dimensional anchor point, their origin plane." "Can you track it?" asked Chen. Ortiz nodded slowly. "Yes, but the calculations suggest the anchor point exists in 11-dimensional space at coordinates we can only reach through a singularity transit." "A suicide mission," translated Admiral Zonth. "Not necessarily," countered Ortiz. "I've been working on a modified consciousness transfer protocol based on Congress technology and human neural mapping. A volunteer could theoretically maintain coherence through the transit." The bridge fell silent as the implications became clear. Someone would need to physically deliver the dimensional realignment device into the heart of the hegemony's home dimension. "I'll go," said Ortiz without hesitation. Captain Chen started to object, but Thrix interrupted. "No, this is a Congress matter. I should." "With respect, Ambassador," Ortiz said firmly, "your neural architecture isn't compatible with the transfer protocol. Mine is, and I've already run the simulations." As the debate continued, Thrix noticed something in Ortiz's expression, not fear, but a fierce determination that seemed uniquely human. The will to face impossible odds with the absolute conviction that adaptation was always possible. The Congress Assembly Hall, partially rebuilt after hegemony bombardment, bore the scars of recent conflict. Makeshift repairs alongside ancient architecture created a visual metaphor none could miss. Tradition and adaptation in uneasy coexistence. Representatives from all member species gathered with the human delegation, now heroes, yet still regarded with complex emotions by many. At the center of the chamber, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the assembly, her diplomatic uniform adorned with a single addition, a small pin bearing Lieutenant Commander Keller's service number. "The void hegemony has been neutralized," began Chancellor Ulu, her bioluminescence steady despite obvious exhaustion. "Through Lieutenant Ortiz's sacrifice, the dimensional anchor was recalibrated, sealing the breach between our realities. The assembly observed a moment of silence. Though Ortiz's consciousness had theoretically survived the transfer, her physical form had been lost to the singularity. "We gather now," continued the Chancellor, "to consider humanity's formal petition for Congress membership and to address their proposal for structural reform." Murmurs rippled through the chamber as Vasquez stepped forward, moving with careful precision. Her recent injuries from the final battle, 3 broken ribs and a spinal fracture, were still healing. "Esteemed delegates," she began, "humanity is honored by your consideration of our membership. Before you vote, however, we wish to propose the Adaptive Resilience Initiative." Holographic displays activated, showing a complex restructuring of Congress governance, a hybridization of traditional principles with evolutionary mechanisms. "The Congress has maintained peace for 50 millennia through stability," Vasquez acknowledged. "We propose preserving this core while incorporating renewal systems that encourage controlled adaptation." Traditionalists immediately objected. The Vecti representative's crystalline form vibrated with distress frequencies. This would fundamentally alter the Congress's founding principles. "Stability through consistency has been our cornerstone." And yet, countered Vasquez, when faced with an outside threat, that very stability became vulnerability. The debate might have continued for cycles, but was interrupted when the secure doors parted to admit an unexpected delegation. Hegemony prisoners escorted by Congress security. The lead entity, its dark energy form contained within a specialized field, addressed the assembly through a quantum translation matrix. "We attacked," it stated without preamble, "because we had no choice. Your Congress's perfect stasis created a dimensional anomaly threatening all realities." Stunned silence followed this revelation. "The universe requires entropy and change to survive," Vasquez explained, comprehension dawning in her eyes. "You built a civilization that achieved perfection, but the cosmos demands growth." The vote that followed remained deadlocked until Thrix, now elevated to senior ambassador after her warden leadership, approached the central platform. In her hands, she carried Lieutenant Commander Keller's battered poetry journal, recovered from the ruins of the Cultural Exchange Hall. "Before the hegemony attack," Thrix began, "I feared humans for their chaotic nature. They terrified us because they never stopped changing." She opened the journal, revealing a page marked with elegant human script. "Now we understand that is exactly why we need them." She read Keller's final poem, a reflection on the beauty of impermanence, the strength found in adaptation, and the courage required to embrace evolution rather than perfection. The final vote passed by a narrow margin. 3 cycles later, a remarkable event occurred on Observation Deck 12. A consciousness transfer pod activated, receiving a signal transmitted across 11-dimensional space. Within it formed a biosynthetic body housing the restored neural patterns of Lieutenant Maya Ortiz, forever changed by her journey through the hegemony's realm, but unmistakably human in her determination to return. As her new form stabilized, she found Thrix waiting. "Welcome back, Lieutenant," said Thrix. "You've missed quite a lot." Together they approached the observatory window overlooking the galaxy, a view now altered by new energy patterns flowing between systems as the reformed Congress implemented human-inspired communication networks.